Why, hello, everybody. Hello, friends. Hello, community. Good evening in the Philippines. Good morning in America. Good afternoon in Dubai. Good evening in Hong Kong and in Singapore. And to the rest of the world, hello there. My name is Bettina Atwill, and welcome back to the weekly live of the Early Childhood Education Show International. Now, last week we talked about interest-based learning and how we can use our children's interests in giving them more learning opportunities and extending on that. So the example I gave last week was an example of children who are interested in Christmas. Now, do you remember this boy? Kainoa. Kainoa, Kainoa really is interested in cutting, in sensory activities, and lately he's been interested. Sorry about that. He's been interested in animals. So he's mostly interested in the animals around his house, which are dogs. He's got 2 chickens, and he loves bugs. So Kainoa is starting to be very interested in these animals. But there's also we can go into different ways when we talk about Kainoa's interest in animals. So we can either expose Kainoa to more dogs, we can expose Kainoa to more chickens, and we can expose Kainoa to more bugs. Or we can also go deeper and expose Kainoa to more animals. For example, Kainoa goes to a center, and in his center, his favorite educator is from the Philippines. And so the Philippines is a very different world for Kainoa. Kainoa's never heard of the Philippines, doesn't know where the Philippines is, but then he has this very close relationship with that educator. One way we can foster this and respect Kainoa's interest in his animals and at the same time support Kainoa's environment by linking it to his interest and his close relationship with his educator is perhaps we can also give Kainoa this opportunity to learn from books. So literature is a really, really great way where we can extend on children's interests. According to Descartes, one way of according to him, one way of having a really good conversation is through a good book. With a fine person is through a good book. And this is one way we can expose Kainoa to a whole different world that he's never been to, a whole different world he doesn't know of. And it's through the power of a good book or good literature. And that is where we as adults, we as grown-ups, we become not just people who give them books or read books to them, but we sort of get this role of becoming curators. And that's one of the funnest roles is when you can finally select and finally pick out the resources that you want to be able to share with the children in your care or the children that you have at home. And I'm so pleased today because I'm not alone in this live today. In fact, I've got 2 very special guests. And I really do have this big, I do have this big heart for children's literature just because there's so many extensions. So if you stay with me in this live at the very end, I am going to show you 2 different ways how you can extend on literature. You know, it's one thing to expose a good book and read that book, but it's also another thing to extend on it, and then you'll see more different learning opportunities. So for Kainoa, his interest is in animals. Now, what we can do is we can, yes, we can talk about dogs, we can talk about chickens all we want, but they're domesticated animals. The world is filled with beautiful animals and beautiful plants, and this is what we want Kainoa to feast on, to feast this curiosity on. And one of those ways is through rich, beautiful literature. So I'm very pleased today to have two guests, Anya and Dustin, and they have worked together in creating this beautiful book made in the Philippines that exposes the flora and the fauna of the Philippines that we, even as Filipinos, don't even know of. So, without further ado, I would want to introduce you to Anya and Dustin. Hello,
Hello, good
guys.
evening, good morning, good
You.
Hey there.
afternoon. Hello, thank you for having us, Bettina.
Well, thank you so much for coming along. I'm such a big fan of your book, even though it hasn't reached me yet. But then, just the concept behind it and what you have come up and the extended learning that can come out of it is something I'm so excited about, and I really really love the concept of. So Anya and Dustin, I would I want to take myself out of the screen for a while to give you the space to just talk about this beautiful, beautiful book that you came up with. And then I'll come back on later.
All right, thank you, Bettina. Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for having us, Bettina. And we just wanted to introduce a book that we came up with. It's called Alpabeto ng Kalikasan. Okay, do you have it, Dustin? Okay, so it's
Participating.
basically a book. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
So basically, alpabeto is alphabet, and kalikasan is the Tagalog word for the environment. So this is a Filipino alphabet book that showcases Philippine flora and fauna from A to Z, because the Filipino alphabet is basically the regular alphabet ABC, but with the enye from our Spanish roots, and the Philippine language. So we have 28 letters in our language. And I can tell you a bit about how this started. It really came from a need. I became a mother, and I happened to also work for an environmental organization a few years back. And working there, that's where I discovered the richness of Philippine biodiversity. Like I never even knew that the Philippine eagle was the largest eagle in the world. And at that time, I was already in my 30s, and I did not know that. I knew it was our national bird, but beyond that, what are you laughing at, Dustin?
I was in the
But,
same way.
yeah,
It was the
but
same way.
beyond, yeah, exactly, right? So, I felt like I was on a mission. Like, more people should know this. More people should know that the Philippines is the center of marine biodiversity. Things like that, things that I feel like in other countries might be normal knowledge about their own countries, right? Was not popular here. And as a first time mother at that time, I was searching and searching for materials. It's not that there was none, but I didn't find something that was simple enough for a toddler or for a baby. They were probably long books and that discussed about being endangered. We wanted something that was cute, something very palatable, something acceptable, easily digested by smaller children. And so, yeah, and then so I challenged myself I said um, if I can name Philippine species from A to Z, at least 20 out of 28 or something like that, I will come up with this book. And along the way, um, I met Dustin, who is a scholar, an academic, and knows quite extensively about baybayin. And so um, I felt that children should be exposed to not only the Philippine environment at an early age, but also Philippine culture. Right, Dustin?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's where I came in. I was at a point where I was trying to raise my own daughter. She was quite young, but she was at that point where she was also doing creative writing, where she was basically trying to express herself. So I've already gone past that frustration of all I have in the Philippines to teach her during her early years was, lions, elephants, animals that don't exist here. But another one of my frustration with that was that she actually can't, aside from colloquial Tagalog, actually can't speak Tagalog very well, our own language, because she wasn't exposed to it. She likes it. She wants to learn it. It's just that her exposure to it wasn't given to her early enough. And that was my fault as well, because at that time I wasn't in that framework as well. It wasn't until I met my mentor for Bye Bye who taught me all about it. He's also credited in the book. That's why he gets a second credit there, Mr. Elaine Austria. And essentially, that forged us into a path where Anya and I would meet, and we used to run these Baybayin workshops, Elaine and I, in one of the spaces that Anya has, the co-working space that Anya had. And it basically just meshed. And, why not do it all at once? Teach them about the value of preserving our natural treasure, but also about preserving our cultural treasure. There used to have been there used to be a multitude of different languages in the Philippines. There's more than 100 different languages today. Unfortunately, pre-colonial scripts are barely a dozen, or at least existing ones that people know how to use. The baybayin in our book are from the Tagalog version of that, the Tagalog language, and it's, for me, at least one way of early exposure to true Philippine culture. So whether you're in the United States, in Australia, or whatever part of the globe, if you want something that's just a little bit Filipino, like before our colonizers got in there and changed us forever, it's about as close as I felt that you could get. So it just felt like a natural mesh to what the book wanted to accomplish. That icing on the cake, if you will.
And actually,
So
I
that's
just
it.
wanted to. So we're actually, yeah. So we launched this book in August this year in the middle of a pandemic. We launched it online,
Yeah.
and we're happy to announce that we've actually gone on second print. And we will also soon be on Amazon. So wherever Amazon is, you can already avail of the book. And I hate to toot my own horn. No, but what I love, the results. No, really, like the feedback that we get. Like some people are saying, I wish we had that kind of book when I was younger, right? Or someone gifted my child this book, but it was me who learned a lot as well. It's not just for children. Because like I mentioned, like at 30 years old, I didn't know a lot of these species. I mean, so let me give you a sneak peek, okay? So if you grew up in the early 80s like me, A was always Apple, right? So for our book, A is
There.
alitap-tap. Alitap-tap is firefly. Yes. And letter B is, oh, there you go, butanding or whale shark. I mean, so the children nowadays probably know what a whale shark is. I mean, because in the recent years, butanding sightings have increased, or people are just more aware of them. But people, the kids would know them as whale shark and nothing else. So at least they know the local name, butanding, and there actually are other local colloquial names for the species like tiki tiki, and other stuff. And we actually have a website, www.alpabetonakalikasan.com, and in it we have a glossary of the species that are in the book, and that includes their local names. And in which case, if they don't have the local other names that you know of, we can add them there as long as you just email it to us, and we can verify the information with some biologists. So with this book, because I know some, but not a lot for sure. So we consulted with biologists from Haribon Foundation, which is the organization that I worked for. And we really have biologists on the field that we consulted with. So we made sure that, okay, for example, let's see, letter D is dugong, um, which is a sea cow. And the scientific name is actually dugong dugong. So we made sure, what's the difference between a sea cow and a manatee? Oh, it's the fin. So, we had to make sure. We made sure that the illustrations were spot on and at least anatomically correct. And, I really learned a lot myself because, like, I was honestly stumped with the letter C. Because the letter C is not commonly used in the Philippines. But I found out that the Philippine slow loris, which is what the kokam is spelled with the letter C, because it probably has roots in Bahasa, because it's you can find the Philippine slow loris down south near in Mindanao, so it's closer to Indonesia. So it's probably why the it starts with the letter C. Can you explain any more about language there, Dustin?
Languages. I was just about to jump in there. Speaking of languages,
Yeah.
that's another important thing to note on why we included Baybayin on our book. I mean, people are probably thinking, or a few of the people replied when it first came out, "Why are you putting Baybayin on a children's book? Isn't that something that older kids do or learn?" But for us, and at the very start, it's not just a writing system, it's also a cultural heritage. Baybayin, speaking of Indonesia and other Southeast Asian countries, traces its roots from there. It's part of the Austronesian people's languages. It's part of the endpoint of the language, of course. So Baybayin came all the way from Proto-Sanskrit, traveling all the way to the Philippines. We're one of the last to receive that kind of script. But if you'll notice, it actually reveals the closeness of our peoples to the other Southeast Asian and Austronesian peoples here. So the book alone, I know it doesn't really outright say that, but having those little things on the book gives us a little bit more root to anyone who reads it, particularly the Filipinos of the diaspora or Filipinos who would be growing up without any exposure really to their own country or their heritage.
Wow. Thank you so
Exactly. So actually, I mean, not just third culture kids, no, or migrant families, but even the older generations here in the Philippines, because my generation learned about Baybayin, right, which was formerly known as Alibata as we grew up, right, but it was mistakenly called that. What's this? But then, like, my parents, like, ooh, what is that? Like, they'd never seen that. I mean, just the fact that we had a pre-colonial script, kind of instills a pride in your people, right? It makes you proud to be where you are from. I mean, not only because of the number or the richness of the, biodiversity of the Philippine flora and fauna, but because, wow, we had this even before we were colonized. And that's another thing that we want to come out from the book, no? To show, hey, we had this, we have these. And so just to, because I believe if you feel affinity or a sense of pride in your country, you are going to want to protect it very fiercely. So those are one of the things, because we all know that that is something we really need today, when our mountains are being chopped down like there's no tomorrow. I mean, seriously. So, I mean, we have to start when children are young so that they can feel, no, you do not chop just like that, because, the Philippine eagle needs X square kilometers of forest to be able to live, to thrive. So that's what one of the objectives of the book, really.
Wow. Thank you so much, Anya, for that really, and Dustin for bringing in all these very deep concepts into a very, as you said, palatable book that's easy for any child to just pick up and read, and for any grown up to appreciate. And for, I think, like, in the early years, we become their very first history teachers. So the best way to start history lesson is through the beginning. And the beginning isn't when we were colonized or when a country was colonized, but it was pre-colonial. And when you dig deeper, no matter what country, whether it's the Native Americans, the Aboriginals, or the first people of the nation of Australia, or you've got here the Philippines, the pre-colonial indigenous tribes, we see that there's this pattern of how they had this respect for nature, and they're able to actually work with nature and in unity with nature, as opposed
Absolutely.
to, yeah, what we're going through now.
And that's as an educator, that's what we really wanted to do with the book, just that early exposure. Because if you remember, our generation, or even up to the millennials, their first exposure to, for example, mythologies aren't Filipino mythologies in our schools. It's Greek mythology, it's mythologies from other countries, when there is no lacking of it for us. Like, you go to the UP library, there are entire tomes of Filipino mythologies from almost every island, and no one's using them. These early exposures, no matter the age, I think, is a very important part to get them asking for it. So maybe when they get to this next generation, when they get to school, they're gonna ask their teachers, "Why are we learning Greek mythology? It's so far away. What about here? What did my ancestors believe?" Right? And they definitely believed that communing with nature and being one with nature was an important part of living a harmonious life.
Exactly. And social justice is
Mm-hmm.
also a very big element with with people pre-colonial times. And you can see this with the circle of courage, with the Native Americans, and that's adapted in a lot of educational theories as well. We can see this with the first people of Australia, the concept of social justice, and then we've got our own people as Filipinos, pre-colonial times, and how their structure, the structure they had, where they lived in communities and they didn't really have that strict hierarchy. Would you agree, Dustin?
Absolutely. Actually, that's one of the main things we lost with colonization. Like today, the concept of utang na loob has become so twisted and has become so translated into Western ideas of quid pro quo. Like you do something for me, I do something for you. That's utang na loob for most people, or how they're taught what utang na loob is. When in actuality, if you observe particularly the remaining indigenous peoples of the Philippines today, utang na loob to them is a complete circle the moment you do the favor. Thank you. It's more of a karmic circle. Thank you for letting me be a good person in helping you. There is no debt to the other person to pay it back. But because of that, they build a community where everyone just
Mm.
helps each other. You know, you can see this with the almost every indigenous people, from the Tiboli in the south to the Ifugao in the northern mountains of the Philippines.
That's beautiful. All right. So how do we break this down to our children? And the first best way is to start with a really great book. Not just any book, as Anya said. You've got to pick the right book. And you know, I'm happy to toot your horn to say that,
I'll bring up the
and I will do it again and again because I really, I'm a big fan of what you've come up with, the thought and the depth it has, the 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 opportunities are so endless for this to extend on. So, like for example, let's take the butanding. Oops, butanding. Can I see?
I'll show it
Okay,
on our.
so there you go. So we start with the book, Butanding, and then to extend on that, you can show your children an identification card of the Butanding. And because Kainoa loves to cut, Kainoa's into cutting, we can
Mm.
get Kainoa to cut it, or Kainoa, or you can cut it for Kainoa, and then you've got a puzzle.
Ooh.
So these are just little ways how you can extend and extend. And every time Kainoa will visit this Butanding puzzle, you can make it harder, you can cut it into fours, you can cut it into six, and then it becomes a whole puzzle, but then it also is reinforcement. So it extends on the literature, it extends on the book, but it also becomes an experience. Then you extend on it again by hiding the different parts of the puzzle around the house, and then Kainoa will have to piece them together. Then you can even extend it with the other animals and then hide them, and then Kainoa will have to group, and there's the compare and the contrast and the classification. So there's so many ways on how you can extend with a piece of really good, rich literature. And of course, Dustin, how did the indigenous people pre-colonial times write?
Oh, well, of
What
course,
did they use to
yes.
write?
Um, there were many avenues on how they wrote, but the most evident that we found is bamboo. And then they would sort of, they had a specialized tool for writing, not really a chisel, but they would pretty much kind of chisel the baybayin inscriptions into the pieces of bamboo, and then they would use the soot of their campfires or soot in general, and then rub it on to the inscription, and then just blow it out, and you have a beautiful inscribed bamboo piece. Unfortunately, because bamboo degrades and is environmentally friendly, it's not like the carved stones that they have, like the clay tablets dating back to Hammurabi. That's why we have so little of the Baybayin remnants left.
But you mentioned a lot about clay, right? Clay.
Yes,
So they use clay as well.
we have a few artifacts in the National Museum of the Philippines. Later on, about 14th century, where 14th, 13th century, where baybayin was used on clay pots, on the rims of clay pots, mostly to date or to trace where they're from.
Great. Yeah. So clay is, as we all know, from the earth. When you dig up mud, how many meters deep, you'll find really good clay. And mud play is also a really good way to introduce our children to nature. Not only is should every child have an opportunity for mud play, but then mud play also has this very special bacteria called microbacter,
Yes.
and that actually can produce endorphins that can release stress and help with people with depression and people who are suffering through anxiety. It can help reduce that. So mud play is a really really great resource for children, young children, and it's very easy to find. And that's one way we can extend on this. So they used to write on clay, and you can even extend on it. So if children, oops, if children don't
It's upside
have
down.
upside down, sorry,
There you go.
there, that's
Right.
correct. I tried
Yes.
to do it. Yeah, so if children, they're learning their fine motor skills, and as Anya said, the first letters we learned were A, B, C. But then at the end of the day, when it comes to being able to write, being able to make art, the concept for the child is their ability to make their mark making. And the very first people who made their mark made their own paint. They made their own from natural materials. They used clay. So here's like some mud that I got in the middle of the night because it's 11 p.m. here from my garden, and mix it up with water. But for children who are still in starting out with mud, I'm sure you can't just jump into a mud pit like that. You'll have to kind of um, wean mud play in. And this is a really good one because it's very easy, and they could just trace, where am I? Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, trace it with mud. And that alone is feeds Kainoa. Kainoa is our student, our imaginary student. So that feeds Kainoa's interest in mud play and in sensory. So let's go back to how one piece of really rich literature can have this really great big extension and can go deeper and deeper. So for example, Kainoa likes animals, and then we introduced Kainoa to oops, alpabeto ng kalikasan. And then we introduced, I'm gonna go here. Okay. And then we linked it up to, sorry guys, I'm having trouble with the screen. We link it up to mixing. So mixing with mud and water, that feeds into his interest for sensory activities, because Kainoa is maybe 3 years old, 2 years old, and really loves those sensory experiences. We link that up with mud writing. And then we also, let's go to the other side. Let's go to this side. We link this up to animals. So different animals. Not only will Kainoa be exposed to the Butan to the domestic animals around him, but he'll also be exposed to the Butanding, the tarsier, and these are animals from Southeast Asia. And then we also link him up to Baybayin, and which also links up to the sensory. So there's so much learning that can come out of this one rich experience. So it's really great how one great piece of literature can extend and extend and extend and still tap into children's interests. And that's why literature and play, they really come hand in hand. And when you extend on a child's interest through literature and then extend on that piece of literature with more experiences, it offers more opportunities for children to go deeper into what it is they're learning, and it offers more learning opportunities. So that's one great way of how you can still be very inclusive. You can support your children at the same time. You can ensure that there's real learning going on. You can't just say, oh, it's just play, you know? It's actually our role as curators to select good pieces of resources to be able to foster the interest of our children. And one of those is the really great book, Alpabeto ng Kalikasan. So wherever we are in the world, or whether we're Filipino or not, I really feel like this is a really great piece of literature for any child. It exposes them to animals that we probably never heard of. And many of them are endangered, and many of them are facing a lot of danger these days. So being able to expose the world to these animals at this point, at this time, before they become extinct, is good. A really, really great way to fight extinction. So yeah, that's all for tonight. Anya and Dustin, thank you so much. Everyone, I haven't checked the chat box, but if you would want to get this book, it will be available on Amazon, right? Very soon. And you can also visit
Soon.
Anya's site and Dustin's site if you're in the Philippines and you want to get it. It's a really great, 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 great Christmas gift that you can gift to someone. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thanks for
It's
having us.
been really great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And bye-bye.
All right. Bye, Bettina. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, community. Take care and stay safe. And I'll see you again for our last live next week, last live of the year. Okay, bye bye.